And the Jamal Adams saga has reached the next step. And this time, it's with Adams calling out his head coach. Earlier this week, he called out the Jets, basically saying that they need better ownership at the top after the allegations came out against Woody Johnson. But in a daily news article written by Manish Mehta, Adams went on the record to say about his head coach, "I don't feel like he's the right leader for this organization to reach the promised land. As a leader, what really bothers me is that he doesn't have a relationship with everyone in the building. At the end of the day, he doesn't address the team. If there's a problem in the locker room, he lets another coach address the team. If we're playing like shit and we're losing, he doesn't address the entire team as a group at halftime. He'll walk out of the locker room and let another coach handle it." Now, for anyone that has watched or listened before, you know I'm not the biggest Adam Gase fan. And let's be honest, there's three things with this. Number one, there's two sides. There's the Jamal Adams side, there's the Adam Gase and the Jets side, and then there's the middle where the truth really is. But I will say this about Jamal Adams is 100% right. From everything you've heard about what's happened in Miami, to former players in Miami blasting Adam Gase, it all rings true. And this was one of my biggest criticisms of Adam Gase last year, was as a head coach, you need to be responsible for the team. You can't just be responsible for one side of the football. I want to give you a great example. So, a lot of you guys that are watching are Jets fans. Do you remember watching Hard Knocks about a decade ago with Rex Ryan? We all know Rex Ryan was a defensive coach, right? He focused on the defensive side of the ball. But one of the things I really loved about Hard Knocks with the Jets was you saw him always communicating with the offensive players, always making a point to talk to LaDainian Tomlinson, to talk to Mark Sanchez. He wanted to be involved in everything and make sure he had a connection with his entire team. And he didn't stick up for his defense. If you remember, they had the incident at Hofstra where the defense was eating cheeseburgers during practice, and he called them out in the famous meeting where he said, "Let's go get a goddamn snack." But before that, he was talking about, look, you can't be eating cheeseburgers during practice. He called out his defensive unit. And this is what my biggest problem with the Jets was last year. I said, look, there's two head coaches. There's Greg Williams and Adam Gase. Greg Williams has the defense, Adam Gase has the offense. And really, if we're measuring the benchmarks, the defense was a lot better, and Greg Williams was the better head coach for the Jets last year. So you look at Adam Gase right now, and the criticisms he had in Miami, they're still ringing true with the Jets. He's alienating his top players, he's not talking to everyone, and he's just about the offense. And this was my biggest concern when the Jets hired him is, was he going to have time to make the adjustments? Because when you get fired, you need to learn from your mistakes. And I didn't think Gase had time to learn from his mistakes. And they're ringing true. I mean, you listen to the guys that are defending Gase. Who are they? They're offensive guys. It's because they have a relationship with him. They can see how smart he is, how much time he spends to game plans, how dedicated he is to developing the offensive scheme. I mean, they can understand that. But the defensive players, it's harder because they don't have a relationship with him. And Jamal Adams, what he is saying, you look at the actions. I'll always remember the game in Miami last year where the Jets were losing and Gase was sitting by himself on the bench, not with his team. So if you wanted to discredit what Jamal is saying, you just look at what's happened. I mean, we heard reports of this last year about him not addressing the defense, about alienating himself from the defense, and not being a rah-rah guy. And look, not every coach has to be that. I completely understand that. But in terms of what he is saying about Adam Gase, it's alarming. Because it's showing me that he's losing the locker room. And that's one of the biggest concerns about a coach is once you lose a locker room, you've lost them. And it sounds like he's already lost half the locker room on the defensive side. That is not good. I'm going to put a poll here for Jets fans because I have a feeling what they're going to say. But let me ask you this. Who do you want gone first, Jamal Adams or Adam Gase? You just get this feeling that it was never going to work with Gase And the biggest fears you had as a Jet fan when they signed him as the head coach was, number one, is he going to innovate the offense, which he hasn't? And number two, is he going to alienate the star players? And I will say this, I do believe Jamal Adams wants to be a Jet. He's just unhappy with how this contract situation is going. And in the Manish Mehta article, and look, I'm not a big Manish Mehta fan. I always take what he writes with a grain of salt because he flip-flops all the time. I mean, he was the biggest Adam Gase fanboy, and then he jumped off that bandwagon, and now he's trying to do everything to get Adam Gase fired. So I don't really trust his parts of the story, but I do trust the quotes, and I do trust what Adams is saying. And what the Adams camp is saying is that the Jets were talking about having a contract after the season, and they kept flip-flopping, or in this case, Joe Douglas. Now, I will give Douglas a bit of a pass here, and here is why. It's his first year as a general manager, handling contracts with one of the most high-profile stars in the NFL. So I get that. For him, the draft is what he was developed as. He was a draft guy coming up through Philadelphia, through Baltimore. We saw it through the draft this year. That's his strength. The hard part when you're a general manager is getting into the trades and the negotiations. And really, this was his first big negotiation. And I do believe that Douglas wants Jamal Adams to be there, but I also understand where he's coming from when he says no player's untouchable, except maybe the quarterback. Because if you get in a ridiculous offer, if somebody offered you something ridiculous for Jamal Adams and you didn't take the opportunity to improve your team, as a general manager, you're doing a disservice to that team. So I get that Jamal Adams was hurt that they were taking calls at the deadline last year. I think part of it is he's still salty about that. And look, they take calls on everyone, even Tom Brady. So in that case, I don't love where Jamal was coming from in that situation. But when you read how the Jets were flip-flopping in the offseason, I can understand why Adams was upset. I don't completely buy everything in the article. Jamal Adams saying that he wouldn't take a raise this year if they went out and spent it on bigger players. I mean, from everywhere you've heard, and even Le'Veon Bell, he wants to get paid, and I can understand it. For the Jets, you have a great player, and you're not really paying anyone outside Le'Veon Bell and C.J. Mosley. Just pay him. Pay him what he's worth. If you pay him, he'll fall in line. He'll be the leader of this team, because right now the Jets, Jamal Adams isn't the biggest problem with this team. He's even said he's going to report to camp. You should get him locked up and just end this negotiation. Give him a blank check. Pay him what he's worth. You're not paying any other big players on this team. You're paying C.J. Mosley. You're paying Le'Veon Bell. But the Jets cap, they have the room to do it. Just do this. Take away from this distraction, because there's going to be a lot more distractions with this team around the head coach and the ownership. Those are the two bigger distractions. Get rid of one right now. And Jamal Adams, I have to give him credit. You know, people say you have to walk the company line, you shouldn't speak out. And even I have said, look, Jamal's under contract. He should play it out. But I also believe that if they feel that their coach is not in the best position to lead them, or their coach isn't giving 100% when they are, they should speak out. And I give him credit for doing that against Adam Gase. Because what he is saying is what a lot of Jet fans have felt and feared about this head coach. And I've been on the record saying if I was in charge of the team, I would have fired Adam Gase last year. But I understood why they didn't, because they wanted some continuity for Sam Darnold going into year 2. They didn't want to give Sam Darnold his third head coach in 3 seasons. I could get that. But at this point, if the Jets start off slow, I would make the move to make Greg Williams the head coach, because he's proven he could be a head coach in Cleveland. They had their best success when he was there. He's a guy that people will buy into, and he's in the building. He knows these players. I believe that he will motivate them, and he will get them to buy in. I'm not 100% sure about Adam Gase. And, the offensive players can say it's fine, it's working out okay, but you look at what he's producing on the field, it hasn't been great. And then the next breath, if Gase loses this locker room, it's irreparable. And we saw Miami. Miami has done an incredible job of rebuilding that team. But if you're the Jets, you just cannot sell away star players because your head coach doesn't want to have a relationship. It's his job to be in charge of the entire team. A head coach has to handle everything. Even Rex Ryan, for all of his criticism, even Todd Bowles, for all the criticism, he had relationships with players on both sides of the ball. It's alarming that Gase not only doesn't have a relationship with the defensive players, but he's sending other coaches to do locker room speeches and talk to them. He won't even talk to them directly. That is alarming. This is supposed to be a head coach, a leader of men. This is a men's sport. These aren't college kids. These are men who want to be treated like men. And you have a head coach that won't even give them the time to listen or even talk to them? That is absolutely ridiculous. I have never heard that. And who knows what this will do? Will it lead to the Jets considering trading Jamal Adams? Maybe. But if I'm the Jets, I keep Jamal Adams before I keep Adam Gase, because Jamal Adams has proven that he wants to win, he wants to work hard, he wants to buy in, and he's pointing out that this head coach isn't completely bought in. Just pay him, get this distraction out of the way. If you pay Jamal, you show him that you love him, you want him to be the leader of this team. And if it doesn't go well the start of the season, you make Greg Williams the head coach through the season. Because I was never an Adam Gase fan when they hired him. I was on the record they should have fired him last season, even though I knew it could hurt Sam Darnold's development. But this is a season where there's going to be a lot of adversity with the coronavirus. The Jets are not going to have any fans in the stands this year. There's not going to be a preseason. There's going to be a lot of adversity. This is a year where you're going to need a head coach to really keep a team together. And from what Jamal Adams is saying, the cracks are already there in the Jets. It's just a matter of time until they finally break. And I'm making this prediction. I don't think Gase is the head coach at the end of next season. I just don't think he can be the head coach. Unless something dramatic happens, this team's a playoff team, or Sam Darnold plays at a Pro Bowl level, I just can't see it. Because there's too much smoke around Adam Gase. And when there's smoke, there's always a fire. The Jets have a lot of problems right now. They have a problem with their head coach. They have a problem with their ownership. They have a problem with a disgruntled star player. If you're Joe Douglas, I understand that this is your first big contract negotiation, but you want to send a message to your team and to your fan base that you are committed to winning, and you do that by keeping great talent. You give Jamal Adams a blank check. You make him the highest paid defensive back in the league, and you take care of one problem that you can take care of, because the ownership problem the NFL has to investigate. We don't know how long that's going to take. The head coach, he's not going anywhere for the time being. But this is a problem the Jets can fix, and they have to sooner than later. Do you want more Jets content? Of course you do. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our content on the New York Jets. We have so much coming for you, especially as we approach the preseason. Only here on Rich Sports Talk.